All right, working on the VR6 today, and finally got all our fittings in, so we can finally put the oil lines on, oil drain, oil return, oil feed, oil drain, and the coolant lines as well. We got those in, and still working on this downpipe. I got most of it welded, still have to do all the pie cuts though, but I got all these ones welded. Work in progress. I've just been doing it in sections since it takes forever, but you can see we got our little oil restrictor in. I believe it's a 0.4 millimeter. Can't remember, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. We got our coolant fittings for the turbo as well. I'm gonna go ahead, throw all those on. And I got coolant line already ran to this since it used to be hard line, and same with this one. Just gotta zip tie them up out of the way, but got the T fitting here for one of the coolant lines for the turbo, and then I'm gonna use this one for the other coolant line, so shouldn't be too difficult. And hopefully, so I'm hoping in this video I might be able to start this thing and make sure it runs. I'm just gonna connect the stock ECU into it. It's probably not gonna run right. It shouldn't, because it doesn't have a mass airflow sensor and a bunch of other stuff. It has bigger injectors and all that, so it's not gonna run right, but I wanna make sure that at least the engine runs, because it's a junkyard engine basically. I got no clue if it runs, so we're probably gonna start this video, which hopefully pretty excited about, because hopefully it runs. We're gonna see. All right, so went ahead and got the oil feed line all on. As you can see, we also got the little coolant fittings going into the turbo on, and we got one of the turbo coolant lines done, or at least not done, but attached to the bottom side. Hard to see right there. Got it coming up through here. I just gotta attach this to right here. Got an adapter from 1/2 inch to 3/8 or 5/16, I can't remember. So I'll just put it in there. I'm gonna do the same thing for this one. Back here, it's gonna go into this one. And then we'll have the coolant lines done, and the oil line for the feed is done. And I have went ahead and made a oil drain line right here. That should work. Got a 45-degree on one side and a 90 on this side, because it has to do a 90 up here to clear the exhaust once it is in. It's pretty tight, so that has to be 90 going out this way, basically. And then it's gonna loop around into here. And the reason I have this fitting on right now is because I am not that bright, and I forgot to put this oil drain line on before I filled the motor with oil. So I already put oil in this thing, put 10W40 in, which is what I put in all my cars. Yeah, so it started leaking out, hence all the speedy dry down there, because I don't have a brain and I forgot that this needs to go in. Luckily, it's just above where the oil sits, so it was only like leaking out a little bit. I probably lost about 1/4 of a quart, not much, but I don't want it to keep dripping, so I put that fitting in just for now and have it angled up just enough so it doesn't leak. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead, throw this in, finish that other coolant line, and finish this one up as well, and then go from there. All right, as you can see, went ahead and got all the coolant lines to the turbo, got those all set up, and also went ahead and got the turbo drain line all set as well, so should be good. I think I'm gonna go ahead and try and start this thing. I just gotta double check a few more things. I do have to plug the stock ECU in, which I have right here. I'm not sure if it is even gonna start with this, since there is so much stuff missing on it right now. I'm not sure if it will or will not start, but I kind of want to see what this thing sounds like, because I want to make sure that it's fine and not messed up before I go any further with this. Because obviously if it's blown up, then it's not a good thing. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna double check everything, and I might be giving this thing its first start, which I'm pretty hyped about. All right, got the battery on, or I'm just gonna disconnect that. And I got the zip tied out of the way. I forgot I had to put the power steering line into the rack and pinion, so I just went ahead and tightened that down. And I think this thing's ready to attempt to start it. But first, I'm gonna go ahead and pull these coil packs out, or disconnect just the connectors, pull those off, and make sure the turbo is getting oil. So what I'm gonna do is crack this line open, crank it a few times, make sure there's oil coming out of that, And then that way, I did put a little bit of oil in this thing before I put the line on, just to make sure it had some oil in there for start. But yeah, gonna see if this thing starts. All right, got the coil pack connectors disconnected. We're just gonna prime it real quick. See if it even cranks, right? All right, that should be good. Obviously, gonna check for leaks, which looks good as of right now, and see if this thing's getting oil. All right, so just loosen this up, and you can already see the oil is coming out. So I think that's pretty safe to say this has oil in it, actually. So I'm just gonna go ahead and tighten that thing up. No need to pull it off completely. Now I can go ahead and reattach these. I also went ahead and pulled the little rubber caps off the turbo on this side because I don't want those to get sucked in. At least this one, this side, the bigger side, the inlet side, I don't want that to get sucked into the turbo, even though it probably won't. I would rather not find out. So did that. I think I'm also gonna go ahead and put the wastegate on too. That way it's not blowing out of here into anything in this direction, but that way it's just coming out of there. So yeah, I think should be all set. Just gonna do those quick little things, put these coil pack connectors back on, put the wastegate on, tighten that line, and we're gonna see if this thing starts. I'm pretty excited to see, and hopefully it does. All right, got the wastegate on, tighten that line, and we got the connectors back on. And just from cranking it, you can hear the water pump, the secondary water pump, the electrical water pump. It's definitely working still. It usually stays on for a little bit after you turn the car off, or crank it, I guess. But yeah, so at least that's working, so I know, and it cranks and all that. So hopefully this thing starts. Let's see. Here we go. There it is. All right, so there it was. It started. It's running really rough, and that is because of the fact that the injectors are twice the size of the factory ones, so it doesn't know what it's doing right now, especially with no mass airflow sensor. So it's definitely running extremely rough right now. I'm hoping that's just from the ejectors, which I assume it is, and no mass airflow sensor and all those other things, evap's missing, all that stuff. So that's why it's running rough, if you're wondering, but it starts, which is pretty awesome, I think. And yeah, it's pretty exciting. Finally see this thing run. It wouldn't have started if the timing was off. It wouldn't have started if the crank position sensors, cam position sensors, all that stuff wasn't right. So that's definitely a good thing. So all that stuff, he seemed to have timed it right. It seems to run. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and pull the ECU back off and the battery, take that out. And I think I'm gonna start working on installing the EMU black. The thing that stinks is I'm still waiting on a boost controller, intake air temp sensor, and a few other things. I'm still waiting on a new fuel pump as well. That's pretty much last on the list of things to do. But yeah, super hyped it runs. That's all I cared about. I don't care how it ran right now, as long as I heard it run. Definitely gives me hope that this engine is good. And yeah, pretty excited. I don't see anything leaking either. Other than that actual one spot right there, I didn't see that, which is kind of concerning. Not sure. It does look like that's leaking actually, so I'll check that out, let you guys know what that is, and go from there. Okay, so that leak was actually just from this fitting. As you can see, dripped onto the transmission from this hose, down onto the ground over there. That was from when I was priming it and had this loose. So it's not leaking anymore. I just started it again to make sure. So there actually is no leaks. I checked the oil return line, all that. It's not leaking from that. It's leaking from, you can see, way down there in the back where it traveled down this hose onto the transmission and out towards the back, right down there, which is super hard to see, but you guys get the idea. So nothing is leaking other than that I know of right now, which is definitely a good sign. And yeah, gonna pull this battery off now, pull this ECU out, so I don't need to sit here and start it and run it. Just wanted to make sure it started. All right, we got the battery ECU all out. Put the covers back on the turbo just so nothing falls in there. And went ahead and took out the front piece of the car. I guess the radiator support, headlights, crash bar, radiator, all that stuff. And I also got the bumper out of storage as well. Bumper I have sitting out in the sun because it's kind of warped from sitting. So hopefully that sun warming it up, even though there's barely any sun out today, of course, but hopefully it'll go back to how it was. But I think I'm gonna try and cut this out to get the intercooler on. All right, so we got the intercooler right here, and basically what I gotta do is cut this crash bar out all the way across the top, get this thing to fit in there. This is a pretty decent sized radiator. It's nothing crazy, or intercooler I mean. Nothing crazy. It's got 3-inch inlet, outlet, and I think it's a 3-inch thick core, and I think it's 2 feet long. Can't remember off the top of my head, and like 12 inches wide, or height wise. But this is definitely gonna be more than enough for what I'm gonna be pushing in this thing, and it should be good. I'm gonna say probably around 500 horsepower this thing's good for before I have to upgrade. Didn't want to cheap out on my intercooler because heat is definitely not good for the engine, especially turboing it. Don't want it to get too hot and blow the thing up. So I think I'm just gonna trace out an outline, pretty much have an idea already of what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cut this whole thing out all the way up till the top here, just leave this top section on. And yeah, other than that, this whole thing's gonna be cut out. Hopefully don't end up rear-ending anyone, because I won't have a crash bar pretty much anymore, but gotta fit this thing in there somehow. And I'm kind of jumping around all over the place with this build. Probably should be doing other things under here still, but instead I'm gonna go ahead and do the intercooler. I don't know, that's just how I wanted to do it. Just kind of jump around all over the place. Probably not the best way to do it. Normally not how I would do something, but keeps it interesting for me. So kind of all over the place with this build right now. And yeah, let's get into it. All right, so got my line drawn out of where I need to cut this thing. Center line, and then 13 inches on each side, since that thing's about 25 inches, so I'll leave half an inch on each side of room. And it pretty much ends up lining up right with this thing right here, this radiator support. So yeah, just gonna use the angle grinder, cut that huge piece out, and then see if that thing fits. All right, so as you can see, got the 2 pieces cut out of that thing. And so this is basically the front piece, and you got that back piece that sits back here. And I ended up torching the back piece off, as you can see, just because my angle grinder couldn't get it all the way back there. It was just easier. This in the way and all that, just torch it off. So I did that, and now I'm gonna see how the intercooler fits in there. Alrighty, so I got it in there right now, and I just didn't do it, but forgot this thing expands the more it goes down. So I ended up having to grind a little bit off the bottoms here with the grinder, and now it pretty much fits in there super tight. And as you can see, it's not even bolted in, and it's stuck in there right now. So I think I'm gonna leave it like that. That way it has a little bit of support on the sides. I'm just a little worried about it wearing into the tank. Might put a little piece of 3M tape or like rubber or something right there, or I'll end up just grinding it down. But this will make it easy to drill in the holes for the top. But yeah, so I might end up grinding a little bit more just to be on the safe side. I don't know if I want it to be pushing up against there, as this is probably gonna move a little bit in the car. So don't end up wanting to wear a hole in the intercooler. All right, as you can see, got this thing mounted up. I ended up clearancing it on the sides. Has just a little bit of room down there on each side. Works out mint, as you can see. That way it's not touching. Side's a little closer, but it's definitely not touching still. I might grind that a little more because it is pretty close, but haven't tightened these down yet, but not too worried about it hitting since these bolts are securing it. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and throw this on the car just to see how it looks. It's not too difficult. There's 2 bolts on each side. I'm not gonna connect anything else since I will have to pull this off anyways, but that way give you guys an idea of what it looks like, because kind of interested. All right, so we got it on the car now, and I feel like having it on the car kind of just shows how big that intercooler is. I was gonna get a smaller one, but I ended up getting a really good deal on this thing, so that's what I got. But it's pretty cool to see it slowly start coming together. This car's been down for over a year now. Just haven't been able to get to it, so it's pretty cool seeing this thing slowly come together. But yeah, not bad. And another thing I was gonna check when I put this on is I wanted to make sure, if you saw my last videos, the throttle body, making sure it would clear that fan. It's pretty dark, but as you can see, it's really close. But when you spin the fan, it's got probably about, put my whole hand back there, plus a little bit more. So it's got plenty of room, which is pretty good because I was worried about that. But overall, not bad. And I think that's gonna wrap it up. All right, so that's gonna wrap it up, I think. It's a pretty quick video, not that interesting, but showing you guys as I go, the VR6 project. But yeah, next video, gonna get the downpipe in, finally get it done. And then I think we're gonna start working on intercooler piping. And I also have to pull the intake manifold back off, drill a few ports in it for vacuum hoses and stuff like that. So I don't know if I'm gonna include that in the next video. I probably will. But yeah, so intercooler piping, gonna get the downpipe on, intake manifold. Those are like the 3 main things I'm probably gonna do next video. And yeah, stay tuned for the next one. Peace.